Good evening, everyone. Happy Sunday. It is the greatest time of the year on House of College Hoops. Welcome to our Oscar show. We're joined by our great crew here to break down all the top picks, all the top films we've seen this year. And no, I'm just kidding. We're doing our bracket show. It's Selection Sunday. We've got games all week long starting in the first round. Everyone's going to be filling out brackets like crazy. So it's madness right now. And we're here to take some time and give our picks and some of our favorite selections for all 68 teams that have moved on for the next month. So if we could zoom out and check out our crew here, we've got a pretty solid group of people here, joined obviously by a House of College Hoops crew, Chris Thedinga, Michael DeRosa, Will Tondo, Jake Zimmer, and we are joined by special guest from Mid-Major Madness. He says he's watched tape on all 68 teams in this year's tournament, and I honestly believe him. Sam Fetterman. Sam, how you doing tonight?
Define what I mean by tape.
You tell me.
I never said the word. I never said 68. I said 55.
55.
Oh, whatever.
I thought you were
it's
approaching
more than
68. Well, Sam, can you give the final? I know you mentioned it on Twitter today, but could you give the final number on games you've gone to today after the A10 final?
46.
Wow. Unreal. So obviously we've got some great minds looking at this year's bracket, and we're here to give you our best coverage and our top picks for the first couple rounds here. So Will, if you could zoom out and show the viewers what we're working with here. So pretty much, a lot of picks that we kind of expected throughout the year. A couple surprises in terms of seeding. Obviously, our top 4 overall seeds: Alabama, Houston, Kansas, and Purdue. Purdue, kind of a tough pick for a number 1 overall seed. I know they've had some trouble midway through conference play, but for anybody here, do we feel like Purdue really deserved the number 1 seed in their region?
With UCLA's loss to Arizona, I think it was pretty obvious that Purdue was going to get it. I don't think they're one of the 4 best teams in the country, but I don't mind them getting that 4th 1 seed.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of teams, a column that Jake and I were working on throughout the week, a column called "Don't Touch That Dial," where we talked about regular season champions that did not make it in their conference tournament, mostly mid-majors, teams like Hofstra, Youngstown State, Toledo. From what I'm seeing right now, Jake, and correct me if I'm wrong, all the teams that we've mentioned that could not make the cut and will probably be on their way to the NIT did not make it. Are you seeing what I'm seeing as well?
That's what I'm seeing now. I see, a couple of things here as I'm looking off screen just with the bracket, looking at the playing games. Kennesaw was one that I think was going to be one. Let's make that clear, right? And then Liberty gets upset, and Liberty punches their ticket to the NIT. But Kennesaw State was, I think, the closest. And they have Xavier. Lots of people are bullish on that matchup that'll end in an upset, which – for me, Xavier, I wouldn't say is limping into this one, but they sort of had a reality check against Marquette. So they either respond really well and, take care of business by 25 or 30 against a team like Kennesaw State, or they might be going home early. It's one of the two. That's an early takeaway for me.
Actually, if I'm looking at the bracket right now, one team that we did not put in our column because they actually played today and lost to Princeton was Yale in the Ivy League tournament final. Sam, I know you were down at the Ivy League. Could you talk about, what you liked from both Princeton and Yale in the semifinals and how you think Princeton came out on top here today?
Yeah, I thought Yale had a lot of spurt ability in that first game. They came out of halftime. It was 34-31. You looked up and it was 45-31. It was 46-31 almost immediately. And Cornell has this thing where they really don't use timeouts in stretches like that. And Yale just took advantage of that to a T. And this is a very good Yale basketball team with Poulakidis and Bang playing well, with Matt Nolan coming back from injury. But, you look at it today, and Princeton, they have the home court advantage, and they just beat Yale on the glass in this one. Caden Pierce has come on so strong for the Tigers. Mitch Henderson said yesterday he's the best rebounder I've ever coached.
Yeah, so look, Yale's got a lot to bring to the table in an NIT appearance. I think every school that we mentioned in that column, as we were joined by Matt St. Jean, what up, Matt? Every school in that column that me and Jake covered, I think, is going to have a great run in the NIT. So if you're looking for more coverage of that, we'll definitely be talking about that on the House of College Hoops. But let's stick to the main bracket tonight. And Will, you want to go up starting with the South region? So look, number 1 seed Alabama. They're going to be playing, the winner of Texas A&M Corpus Christi, I believe, versus SEMO. A really interesting draw here, especially, maybe for some of our Big East guys. We've got number 6 Creighton going up against number 11 NC State. Charleston, who is kind of the wonder kid team. They're floating around the top 25, definitely floating around our top 25 for a really long time. They kind of lost their top spot in the in the Colonial to Hofstra, and then came back and ended up winning their conference tournament. They're the always feared and coveted 12 seed versus San Diego State, another kind of favorite from the House of College Hoops. And yeah, so great matchups all around the board. Arizona kind of pulling out that Pac-12 win, going up against 15 Princeton, who just won the Ivy League. So anything in these matchups, anyone that wants to hop in the first round and possibly potential second round matchups in the South region that really stick out to you.
Yeah, I think in that Baylor, Santa Barbara, NC State, Creighton quad, you have some of the very best guard play in all of college basketball between Baylor with Flagler, Cryer, and Keontae George, Creighton with Ryan Nembhard and Trey Alexander, NC State with Jarkel Joyner and Terquavion Smith, and Santa Barbara with AJ Mitchell. I mean, you're going to get some elite guard play there, and I think there's a bunch of teams that can make themselves go on a run. I just think in terms of strength, Creighton on the interior with guys like Kalkbrenner, and then you get the great wings of Shireman and Kaluma. I just think they'll be too much for NC State's wings in that situation in terms of an athletic and even a shooting standpoint. And Baylor, I mean, they're kind of gassed right now.
Yeah, and so right now, I think we haven't had an 11 seed. I know people always talk about the 12 and 5 seeds, but we haven't had an 11 seed beat a 6 seed from what I'm seeing. Oh, no, sorry, we did. We had Syracuse, actually, where you're going to be heading next year, Sam, win last year over San Diego. Oh, sorry, 2 years ago over San Diego State. So, again, yeah, we didn't have one last year. Do we think we'll see one in this region this year?
Yeah, I'll take this one, being the Creighton guy. No shot, right? Terquavion Smith's really good, but I think Creighton's guard play and to some extent the wings with Kaluma and Shireman can also play on him and switch, or the switch ability is pretty decent with Creighton. They can stick with Joyner and Smith pretty well. And then down low, DJ Burns is good. I watched him at Winthrop. He's a solid player. Is he as good as Ryan Kalkbrenner? No. And I think DJ Burns is only like 6'9". I think Kalkbrenner has a great day. The Baylor matchup might be a bit tougher, but I think Creighton escapes the NC State game pretty unscathed.
Yeah, and so another matchup that I'm really looking forward to right now is number 4 seed Virginia over 13 seed Furman. I mean, Furman obviously coming off that really great SoCon victory. A Cavaliers team that people, I feel like, were kind of underwriting throughout the year. I feel like people were kind of questioning their status, as a, frequent top 10, even top 25 member. But they made it all the way to the ACC championship game this year, where they fell to John Shire's Duke. Do we feel like this is a pretty good draw for them? Do we feel like we'll see, them make the Sweet 16?
Sam stole my point that I was about to deliver on the Creighton bracket. And it's like, all right, I can't have him do it again. And he's going to Syracuse. I'm taking this one, Furman, Texas game. I think this Virginia team is pretty overrated. You lose Ben Vanderplas too. That's a big loss. And Furman they can stretch you out and they can shoot the ball. They can shoot that ball. I mean, you got Mike Bothwell on the other side, he might be the best player in this game, period. And Jalen Slauson, those are two dynamic pieces. I think Furman takes this game. I'm fairly confident they take this game, frankly.
Absolutely agree that Bothwell is the best player on the court, but Reese Beekman is one of the best defenders in the country. I look at Virginia and I say they do have athleticism on the wings. Furman is not a good defensive team. Virginia is a better defensive team without Ben Vanderplas, and Reese Beekman can put Mike Bothwell, maybe not in hell, but that I think that's a matchup that I think Virginia would take gladly. They can put Beekman on him.
When I'm looking upsets, I look at teams that the game's going to be generally slower and there are going to be a ton of threes. That increases variability a ton. There are going to be a ton of threes, and this game is going to be slower. I really like this Furman team. This is the one 4-13 I'm confident in. The rest of them I don't really like at all.
This
is a Virginia team. Go ahead, Sam.
That's a pretty close one for me. Probably the second closest of the 4-13s.
Oh, okay. I like a tease.
Yeah. I see a Virginia team that has been really good at points this year, but has also kind of lost some games that it really shouldn't have lost. And like that, I mean, they lost to Boston College, and that's a much worse team than what Furman's going to bring to the table. So it's a losable game for Virginia. And when you look at a 4-13, like you don't often see 4-13 matchups where you know that the 4 has lost to teams worse than that 13 seed already during the season. So if you're going to pick one, I like that one.
Yeah, this is interesting too. And I'm curious to see what happens with the 3-point comments, because you look at Furman and I always get tripped up over these KenPom metrics specific to 3-point and 2-point percentage and all this stuff, and especially on the other side of the ball. But Furman is the best 2-point shooting program in the nation. Right? They're 60% from 2, right? So you look at that with Virginia's paint defense, and let's see what that squares away to. Virginia's got a really good paint defense, actually, right? They're 37th in the nation in that regard. So yes, I think this game sort of, you have to take that into consideration, because it sort of eliminates like, all right, hey, Furman, they're going to have to rely on the 3, right? Because you can't get into the paint as easy with guys like Reese Beekman and who knows, right? But I think I'm starting to come around to that Furman upset for sure.
Yeah, Furman. Just a couple stats to throw at you guys right now. Furman, in terms of effective field goal percentage, they are the 11th best team in the country. They are top 50 in steal percentage. Michael, one thing that you brought up that I'm really glad you did brought up, because it's something that I like to talk about, is pace of play. And you said that Furman is a team that can kind of control that. Pace of play, winning the turnover battle, winning in transition. How important are things like that to be a sneaky NCAA tournament team? I mean, because people talk about, things like defense wins championships, cliches like that. I mean, how much truth do those things hold in any of your guys' opinion?
Guards win games, man. I mean, in tournament games like these, a guard who can control the pace, who can force turnovers and not turn the ball over himself, guards win games in the tournament. If you are backing a team to make a deep run, like when you talk about like the deep runs from like underdog, Kemba Walker's the name that comes up. There's a reason that name isn't insert center. There's a reason they don't call it like the Bill Walton run, right? It's the Kemba Walker run, because guards can take over games, they can control games, and they can win those games. They will make the decisions that win games. In March, I like backing teams that have good guards. So in situations like that, guards who can control games, yes, please.
Yeah, and I do like this Furman team. I think they're well coached. I also think Tony Bennett is Tony Bennett. I think that's a close matchup there. It's definitely, there's a tier of these 4-13 games. I think there's a tier 1 for a 13 upset, and then a tier 2. This is definitely in the tier 1 of the more likely ones, but I would still kind of lean towards Virginia here, because I still think Virginia would be able to control the pace in this game.
All right, and so let's get out of this region. But before we do, let me just gut check all of you guys. Dark horse Final Four team coming out of the South. Who you got? Anybody throw one out there for me?
San Diego State.
All right.
I think Charleston
let's move
takes San Diego State. Give me Creighton.
Yeah, I was going to say Creighton too, because this is a team that was picked so high in the preseason and they still have that talent. Worry about depth, but the talent level is there for them to make a run.
Yeah,
And with
I knew
Creighton.
you guys were. I knew all of you guys were going to say Creighton, so I just said.
The bottom half of that region is so much easier than the top
It's true.
half.
It's
Arizona hasn't really improved since November, in my opinion. Then you go down the line. Does Baylor have the juice for a Final Four run? I don't know. Probably not. And then there's really no one else down there. So I think Creighton is a good pick to at least make the Elite Eight.
My line about Baylor is that Baylor is that team that I really want to be a championship contender, but they're just not there.
I'm gonna throw another name out there too, which is Maryland. I think this is a Maryland team that we've seen be really good at points this year, and we've seen Alabama be vulnerable at points. And that's one where if they can get through to the second weekend, you never know what's gonna happen. Michael, you I have a
West
feeling
Virginia
you
killed them.
disagree with me here.
I do. I think West Virginia killed them. Toughness.
Creighton, Maryland, and Arizona, West Virginia, all in the same quad, all in the same bracket in the women's tournament too. Wow.
Oh my goodness.
That being said,
Maryland
I think
away
Alabama
from
should be
home
forced
is
to the Final Four.
just Maryland
I mean,
away
not
from
Final Four,
home is
Elite
just
Eight,
too
sorry,
sketchy.
Elite Eight.
Birmingham, right?
Got 19 different conversations going on. So I'm going to throw my hat in the ring, and not enough people talking about Charleston. I think obviously, we cannot brush past the season that they had. And yes, they're, have to take on San Diego State right off the bat and then, eventually play Alabama. But who knows? There's crazier things that have happened. So that's my dark horse that I'll say.
Yeah, I was real bummed with the draw Charleston got. I was looking to back them, but I don't know if they have the bigs to match up with Nate Mensah, and then Matt Bradley is so clearly the best player on the floor. Yeah, I just can't do it.
Chris,
And
this
couple
is
it
pretty
with-
much-
San
this is
Diego
pretty
State
much
might
your
have like
bracket.
3 or 4 players better than anybody in on Charleston.
Yeah, man, this is my bracket. This is
I was
the,
going to say
the
we got
bracket.
Creighton, we got San Diego State, we got the Ivy,
Yeah,
and we got Charleston. I mean, this is your bread and butter.
not looking forward to having all these teams be killing each other in the first couple rounds, but
And watch as none of them come out of this.
yeah.
Oh, jeez.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
Alabama
it's gonna be
after
like
all
Missouri out of nowhere.
of that. Yeah.
Good Lord.
right.
Yeah, right. I'll throw real quick before we go to the Midwest. I'll just say Baylor. I think they're pissed. They laid an egg. They that's not that their body of work is relatively consistent this year. I wouldn't be shocked if they're standing up their Final Four. So off to Midwest we go.
All right, thanks, Jake. And so we've got the Midwest region. Obviously, the 1 seed coming out of here, Houston, just a dominant team out of the American. The American Conference, by the way, I don't know if any of you saw the statement from the president of the conference, but I think they're really trying to lead the charge in challenging the idea of high majors, mid majors, low majors. So we'll see how that goes over the next couple of years. I think they're definitely trying to make more of a football-focused
work.
argument. But wait, what was that, Sam?
It won't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Hooray! You're losing 3 of your most storied programs.
Yeah, so tough times for the
Congrats on adding
American.
Rice.
Go
So,
Owls,
yeah.
baby.
Tough time for the American, but right now they've got a top 4 team in Houston taking on Northern Kentucky in the first round. Obviously, you've got that really strong Texas team that just won the Big 12 facing Colgate, who are like the undisputed heavyweight champs of the Patriot League. I mean, I have to admit I've seen some Patriot League teams play. Not the most competitive conference I've seen in recent years, but we'll break that down for another day. Iowa Auburn, a really interesting matchup. A lot of people were talking about maybe Iowa having a little bit too high of a seeding here. Drake, the Valley champs as a 12 seed against Miami, and then another one, Xavier, for all of our Big East guys against Kennesaw State, who had a really great run. Anybody favorite matchup in this region?
Texas A&M, Penn State.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's the pick.
And
If we're talking about pure Aller, I mean, that's got to be it, right? You saw A&M, who was, hey, I was not shocked. They were the SEC. They were my Jerome candidate in the SEC, and I think for good reason. Their body of work has drastically improved over the past couple of couple of months. I thought, it was a little bit disappointing. They didn't keep it really tight with Alabama today, but and then you have Penn State, who. God, who doesn't love Jalen Pickett? They're one of the best 3-point
Brad Underwood.
teams. Yeah, true. He definitely does not like Jalen Pickett. But, I mean, God, they're such a fun team to play. We saw that all throughout the Big Ten tournament. Penn State now 3-0 against Illinois for the reason for that comment. But, yeah, I mean, this is one that has a lot of juice. I think if Penn State's hitting threes, they can go to the Sweet 16 very easily. And I think I need to sit on that because I really like the way both those teams play.
Iowa State going up against the winner of Mississippi State and Pitt. Pitt obviously had a really good run in the ACC this year. They were the 1 seed at one point. Anything you like about this game and moving forward, if whoever comes out of this game, anything that they can bring to the table against Iowa State?
I honestly need to do a lot more thinking on Mississippi State, Pitt, Iowa State matchup. But I really feel like that's a wide open quadrant right there. I think that Xavier, I don't really know how to feel about them. I mean, is the best coach in this quad TJ Otzelberger or Amir Abdul-Rahim? It might be, and that's not it's not like a slight to Sean Miller, who's a good coach in his own right. But like,
I was going to say all the Big East guys object to that probably.
But like there's some really like the coaches in this squad I feel like are like tier 2, 3 coaches nationally, and then obviously Jans and Capel are not quite like on that level. But I think it should be a really interesting quad, that one. The other one that I'm looking at is the Albany one, Miami, Drake, Indiana, Kent. I look at Drake and I see a team that's so experienced. They have like so many guys that are like fourth or fifth years, and it's just they're so great in the pick and roll offensively with Brody, and Tucker DeVree can make so many shots. That's a game that I think is going to be maybe closer than people think. It's a 5-12, but I think a lot of people are penciling in Miami. I feel like not so fast there.
No. I like the whole middle of this bracket in general for the second round. If favorites go through, getting that Miami-Indiana matchup, I think becomes very interesting for a variety of reasons. And I think we've seen that that's a pair of teams that have both played incredibly well at points this season and have also had their lulls and stuff. Both teams that I think can win away from home. So that I think is very intriguing. And you go down to the bottom half, potential Iowa State Xavier. Those are two teams who also kind of fit that billing. All these teams with very high ceilings. And I want to see how that plays out. But if you look at the big picture here, I mean, this should be Houston and Texas probably playing for the right to go to the Final Four. I think those are the two best teams in this bracket by a pretty wide margin. I think teams can give them a run, but I still would be surprised if it isn't those two at the end of the day.
Here's my question for you. How much do you trust Rodney Terry?
After he won the Big
Texas
Ten, I
seems
do.
good, though.
Or excuse me, the Big 12.
I like him, but there's one thing I cannot get out of my head about Rodney Terry. It was they were at Allen Fieldhouse and they got down 30-14, and he hadn't used a timeout. It's still stuck in my head.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I'm still not too sure whether I trust him. And the way Texas A&M is playing, I think I'm gonna stick with A&M to the Elite Eight.
Ooh, wow.
All right. So one thing
You go.
No, you got it, Droza.
Okay, yeah. I think both A&M and Penn State can give Texas a real challenge. In the end, I'm probably going to pick Texas. And then in that other quadrant, I'm looking. Xavier is a team I thought was ripe for an early round exit, but I don't think Kennesaw's team to do it. If Mississippi State plays Iowa State, that game might score 30 points in total. There are going to be no points in that game whatsoever. It is
Wait
going
until
to
we
be
get to St. Mary's VCU.
Oh, dear. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, Basil, you mentioned the Iowa State and then that playing game matchup, and I wanted to go back to that real quick because Iowa State without Caleb Grill, a little bit different. Per Evan Maya, he was one of like the top 5 or 6 glue guys in the country. Like he just made them a lot better on both sides of the floor, in my opinion. And without him, I probably like whoever wins that. I think it'll be Pitt, but whoever wins, I will be taking over Iowa State.
At the same time, if Iowa State can get by that game, the way they pressure the ball, and we saw how Xavier has gone against ball pressure, they did not look good. Like Butler pressured the ball against them, and they just threw the ball to nobody a ton. And then Marquette did the exact same thing, and Marquette broke them. Like in that
Yeah.
Big East tournament game, Marquette broke them early on. If you pressure the ball against Xavier, you can beat them. So I'm assuming Kennesaw State's going to do that. Amir Abdur-Rahim is a good coach. They're going to challenge him. I think Xavier gets by that. But if the next round, and the thing is, I don't really like these Mississippi State or Pitt teams. I don't like them that much.
I want to add a little context to some of that Xavier
And
stuff.
And also something about Kennesaw State is they do change their defenses a lot. They'll go into a zone if they have to. They'll go into a press if they have to. Amir Abdur-Rahim is great with these in-game adjustments.
I want to add some context to some of that Xavier performance there too. I know Sule Boom was dealing with an illness for the Big East championship there. He was very sick, and the whole after the game the night before, he was coughing the whole time. So I wonder if that's part of why Xavier looked so out of sorts. Maybe with a little bit of rest and time to get over that, they look better. We mentioned, guard play wins in March, and Sule Boom can be one of the best guards in the country when he plays like that. Xavier has a great backcourt. So, Xavier is an incredibly low floor, high ceiling team. I think they can upset Texas or whoever comes out of that pod below them and make it to the Elite Eight or possibly the Final Four, depending on what would happen with a Houston matchup. But them getting tripped up, probably not by Kennesaw State, I agree there, but whoever they play in that next game is totally on the table, especially with their lack of depth right now.
And so in this region, we've got 3 Big Ten teams. I think the Big Ten has – I just double-checked this. The Big Ten has the most representatives in the tournament this year with 8. And obviously this is exactly why I'm getting to this question, Sam, because in this past tournament, the past 2 or 3 tournaments, the Big Ten has come in with a lot of high expectations. We've got, frequent teams in the top 5, always getting the top seeds. But then they really struggle when it comes to the Sweet 16, the Elite 8. So is this the year where the Big Ten breaks that curse?
No.
Why?
Did you watch the Big Ten this year? Do you know who the coaches are in that conference? Do you know who the players are in that conference? They can't create shots off the dribble. How many players in this conference can create shots off the dribble?
Jalen Hood-Schifino.
Yes. And that's why Indiana is the only team, as of right now, that I've picked in the Sweet 16 out of the entire Big Ten.
Right.
Can I ask a follow-up question here to this? Because I know we've talked a lot about the struggles of the Big Ten here. I think part of that gets magnified because of the number of Big Ten teams that make it. I wonder, could the Big 12 be the new Big 10 this year, where they have so many teams that make it and people are so high on them, but you get so beat up during conference play that you get to the tournament, you maybe get a bad matchup or 2, and things don't go as well as you'd think. I think having Kansas at the top might be a little bit of a buffer for that, but
I agree with that.
I actually don't hate that.
And it's nothing against the Big 12. It's just that a lot of the teams I'm just a little bit lower on than I thought I would be. TCU got a really bad matchup with Gonzaga, and they're going to be without Eddie Lampkin. Kansas has a really tough road. Arkansas and Illinois are athletic basketball teams. UConn, and if UConn makes it, there is an athletic basketball team. Gonzaga is another athletic basketball team. That region is the best region in the tournament easily. So many really great basketball teams there. You look at, what are some other Big 12 teams? Baylor obviously got a really tough draw with Creighton, and even Santa Barbara before that. West Virginia, Maryland is really a toss-up type game. And Texas got the tough draw of Texas A&M. I looked through it right now, and it looks like I only have one Big 12 team in my initial Sweet 16.
All right, and so wrapping up this region, same thing like we did for the last one. Quick, dark horse Final Four team.
Texas A&M.
Penn State.
I'll go
Anybody
Indiana.
Indiana? Right.
Indiana arguably is the second best player in all of college basketball. How are they not as a 4 seed? How are they not?
You're that high on Miller Kopp?
Yep.
I'll take
All
Penn
right,
State.
I'm gonna go with a real dark horse here, and this is for an odd reason. I'm gonna pick Auburn because they're gonna get a location advantage right off the bat. They're basically playing that whole pod at home, and we don't know. Like Marcus Sasser said, he's playing. We don't know exactly what's going on with him, but if he's hobbled at all, Houston plays the slow, low possession games where you can get upset. Auburn might get a home game. And it's like, okay, if you get through that and you make it to the Sweet 16, anything can happen if you're the Tigers. I don't like the odds, but if you're looking kind of in the bottom half of that bracket, Auburn, why not?
All right, let's move on to the West. That's a great analysis, Matt, as well. So let's check out the West region. Number 1 seed Kansas going up against Howard. Howard did a great job in their conference tourney. Really surprising there. UCLA, the 2 seed, going up against UNC Asheville, another really fun mid-major that won their conference tourney. Some other matchups that I like. Iona, possibly Ricky P's last dance with the Gales, going up against UConn, depending on where some of these head coaching searches end up. I feel like we're kind of entering the Rick Pitino sweepstakes in the next 2 weeks or so.
Absolutely.
The 12-5 seed, which I would love to talk about because I watched VCU win their second Atlantic 10 tournament championship today. They're going up against St. Mary's. So this is a great region in my opinion. Oh, and obviously can't forget Gonzaga versus Grand Canyon, who I think this is their first bid, if I'm not mistaken, because they're a fairly new school.
This is the first. This is the first for them.
I feel like they made it a few years ago.
Yeah, I thought
They made it.
them.
They made it in 2021. They lost to Iowa.
Right. Yeah.
That's
yeah,
right.
They got kicked.
Yeah, I can never tell with these new
They kept it within 20 the whole game.
86-74. Not bad.
And then Iowa got blasted.
So I got the
feel like
first point that I want to toss to our Big East guys. I mean, is Pitino going to give Hurley a run for his money and show him that he's meant for the Big East?
This game to me screams like this is that game that everybody's gonna pick as the trendy upset that doesn't happen. Like kind of like Providence and South Dakota State last year. Like that's what this screams to me. I feel like this is way more interesting narratively than on the basketball court, especially if we get the UConn team that we've mostly seen all season and not the one from January. If that UConn team shows up, I mean, they're just so much better than what we're going to see on the other side, even with Rick Pitino, who's a better coach than Dan Hurley. That's my feeling on that one.
As somebody who's watched both of these teams pretty religiously all year, honestly, Iona kind of plays a little bit like UConn in the way that they're athletic, they press, they have that same type of big, except for the fact that if then instead of a guy like Caravan at the 4, it's Shema at the 4, who is a 7-footer, just totally unique player that you need to see no matter what you do before you die. Like you have to watch Osborne Shema play basketball. But Nelly Jr. Joseph is a great mid-major big man. He struggles with strong and defensively sound bigs. We saw it against Ajiri Ogamuno Johnson against Ryder a week ago yesterday, and we're gonna see it again with Adama Sanogo. No matter how much that Iona press bothers UConn can press and bother Iona. UConn is longer than Iona. They're more athletic, while Iona might have some more comfortable ball handling. And I think these teams kind of match up similarly, but I think UConn is just better at basketball than Iona.
All right, he went into the whole literal example. Here, Narrative Nation's taking over now. It's Narrative Nation time. Slick Rick is going. Dan Hurley's looking for his first tournament win, and he's going to have to beat Slick Rick,
Rhode Island,
the man who has made 3 Final Fours with 3 different schools. That's tough. And sure, the team matches up kind of well, but at the same time, if Danis Jenkins and Walter Clayton get it in, and really pressure these UConn guards, that's another thing that can break them. Tristan Newton is good. He's a very good player. I don't know if I can call him a great player and a great guard. And I think the pressure can get him. Granted, Tristan Newton is much bigger. So if you can get the ball up the floor and just out physical Iona, that's the path. I think in the end, UConn wins, but Dan Hurley needs to get his first tournament win, and you have to do that against one of the 5 best basketball coaches walking the face of this earth, who is going to be in the conference next year, probably at St. John's. Good luck. It's a fun game. I think it's close the entire way, and I think in the end, someone just makes a play, and I think Connecticut survives. But it's going to be a scare.
DeRosa, I'm glad you brought up. I'm glad you brought up Narrative
I
Nation
got a quick
Oh, no,
point,
you got it,
Basil. Sorry, back and forth. I'm only worried about the glass, right? I think to Sam's point, there's a lot of good mid-major guys on Iona, who is a mid-major, right? They're expected to have good mid-major guys, but you look at UConn, they are the best offensive rebounding team in the nation. Iona concedes a lot of offensive rebounds as it is, right? The last thing you need in a situation like this is to give UConn more chances, right? And I think with just the raw talent they have, Karabin, Klingon, Sonogo, obviously, this game's going to be one in the paint by the Connecticut Huskies.
Yeah, I mean, last year, Matt mentioned Providence, South Dakota State. That was like, I think Ken Pom had that like as a 54-46. Ken Pom has this 80-20.
Yep.
Wow. So the one thing I wanted to bring up, speaking that I'm glad DeRosa brought up was Narrative Nation, right? And Tana, you asked, is this game Patino trying to show that he's ready for the Big East? I mean, if we're talking about Patino in the Big East, 2 regular season championships with Louisville, 3 tournament championships with Louisville. I mean, maybe 1 and 1, depending on who you talk to, if you're talking to official NCAA records. But my point is, I mean, he took Louisville to the top 3 times, then took Louisville out of the Big East. The Big East kind of went through some reformative years, and now he's on his way back. So I think it'll be really interesting to see, if this is in fact like a first statement win. Another matchup that I want to talk about, because I saw one of these teams today along with Sam at the A10 championship game, and that's VCU, the 12 seed, going up against St. Mary's. One thing, like I was just saying in when we were talking about the first region that we talked about, the South, pace of play, winning the turnover battle, relentless defense, VCU has all of that. Today against Dayton, they did not allow a field goal against the Flyers in the last 10 minutes of the second half en route to a double-digit win against a talented Flyers team. And there are some strong NBA candidates on that team with Tamani Kamara, Deron Holmes II. I just feel like everyone has to pencil this game in on their watch schedule. It's going to be electric. So let's wrap it up on this region. Quick picks. Just throw out the name of the school that you're thinking of. Dark horse Final Four team. I guess I'll go VCU. Why not?
I got one that's not really a dark horse, but we haven't mentioned it. Gonzaga. I think they're playing their best basketball all year right now, and the path sets up really nicely for them going through UCLA there on the bottom half, and we'll see who comes out of the top. This could be the year that Gonzaga breaks through.
TCU. Give me Mike Miles. I think he's one of the best guards, if not the best guard in the country. I think they're going to have to run with Gonzaga, and I think they can run with Gonzaga. I do not think Gonzaga can run with TCU. I think that is a pick not enough people are talking about. I really like this TCU team.
I'll tell you
give
why.
Give me Mike Miles over any guard in the country.
I'll tell you why not a lot of people are talking about it. So Eddie Lampkin has the highest on-off plus-minus of anyone on this TCU team, and there's a solid sample for both on and off. Eddie Lampkin is so important for what they do on the glass, and TCU is not a good shot-making team. Gonzaga is one of the best Gonzaga is straight up by far the best offense in the country. That game is one of the second-round games I'm most confident in.
All right, and so let's move on to our final region, the East. So obviously we got 1 seed Purdue, 2 seed Marquette, the Big East champs that I'm sure all of our Big East guys are ready to talk about, going up against Vermont, another really fun team coming out of the America East. 12-5 seed Oral Roberts versus Duke, John Shire's Duke team that won the ACC tournament in the first year post Coach K. Kansas State, Montana State. Kansas State I feel like is a really fun team. Michigan State I feel like started off kind of hot, but kind of then flew under the radar for the rest of the year. And then obviously another fun matchup in Tennessee as the 4 seed versus number 13, Louisiana. Guys, favorite matchups here. What are you watching first?
Let's get the bug out of the room, or it's Kentucky Providence in this side of the house, right? It's listen, a good Big East team. I wouldn't say great. I wouldn't say bad, right? They're good. Goes against the blue blood. And to Ed Cooley's point today, he's the coach of Providence College today, and they're focused on Kentucky, but their staff, quote unquote, is getting phone calls, and you can be damn sure Ed Cooley is one of those coaches that is getting phone calls. So who knows? I mean, a little bit of an audition on the big stage for him in some ways. I don't really want to believe it, but this one intrigues me. I think that's the one that's going to be on my TV screen personally, and I'm struggling personally to see how Ed Croswell stops Oscar Tshiebwe or comes even close. I think this has the potential to get pretty ugly in Kentucky's favor.
Yeah,
All I'm saying is the Bryce Hopkins revenge game. Coach Cal is he's gonna remember why Bryce Hopkins was meant to play for Kentucky. But yeah, like Jake said, I'm having a hard time seeing the matchup at the 5 spot, and crazy things have happened, but I think sadly Kentucky will win this game.
Matchup.
Look at this.
No, you go, Matt. You're the Providence guy. I'll rant on your brain next.
I look at this matchup for Providence, and I think it's kind of advantageous in one way, in that I think there's some crossover with what UConn has done. And we saw Providence already beat UConn this season, and they just lost to UConn, but they also beat them over the last 12 minutes of that game and figured some stuff out. Ed Cooley was as positive as I've ever seen him after a loss and after that game. And I think he was really happy with what his team kind of figured out there at the end of that one. If they can bring that energy, I think Providence can beat Kentucky, a Kentucky team that is also going to be looking for vengeance here after losing to St. Peter's last year. That storyline is going to be the B storyline because of Bryce Hopkins. Two very motivated teams. I think whoever wins this game is going to be meeting up with Marquette at Madison Square Garden in the second weekend.
Matchups. You have Tshiebwe against Ed Croswell. Give me Oscar Tshiebwe every time. You have, if we're talking like the way you beat Kentucky is you beat him with ball screens. Oscar Tshiebwe cannot defend a ball screen for his life. He just cannot. He's not quick enough. It has not worked. I don't know if I want the ball in Jared Bynum's hand the entire game, trying to run ball screens at him. I don't think that works. Cason Wallace is playing as good as he's played all year. I mean, he is playing as good as anyone could ask. Antonio Reeves dropped 35 the other day. And in the end, this is the last game Ed Cooley coaches because he's going here.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
We got props.
Real
He
quick.
did not do that.
I think we got to add one note to that there, Michael, because you mentioned Jared Bynum in that list. And I mentioned things that went right in the last 12 minutes of that game for the Friars. Jared Bynum was off the floor for most of it. Jared Bynum was out of the starting lineup in that game. I think it's going to be less Jared Bynum trying to do that and more Noah Locke.
Again, I don't think I can trust him coming off ball screens. He is a stat shooter, not a ball handler.
Also, real quick, guys,
he's been
before
much better at that this year. But yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Before we move on to another game, a lot of talk about Ed Croswell. He's the 10th best offensive rebounder in the country.
Yeah, I
It's
feel
not
like
like
Ed Croswell
Tshiebwe is just going
catches a lot
to
of
body
spots
him in the paint.
here.
Croswell can hold his own, and the Big East is notorious for having a league full of really good bigs, and he's done just fine all year. They'll
Yeah.
be fine in the paint.
Yeah, I feel like Ed Croswell's catching some strays there, but I'm definitely going to go with Kentucky in that game. One of the games that I'm definitely looking at here that I circled was Tennessee and Louisiana, because I mentioned earlier about 4-13 games. This is the other tier 1, because I'm not a big Louisiana guy, but I'm also not a big Tennessee guy. Without Zakai Ziegler, he is the key to their on-ball defense. And I think it makes the rest of their defense a lot more challenging. They are about 10% worse in three-point defense over the last 3 weeks than they were at the first part of the season. And you know what Louisiana is really good at doing? Shooting threes. Now, I haven't watched enough Louisiana on film, so I'm going to – them and Montana State are two of the teams that I'm going to spend a lot of time with, because I saw Montana State the shot quality stat. They're only a 6-point underdog in that game for shot quality. I need to watch their ball screen defense on film.
I just wanted to say very quickly, there are very, very quickly, there are like very few times where you can look at a 13-4 and see the 13 have the team advantage in the paint. Jordan Brown is the best interior player in this game, and it is not close. He's a McDonald's All-American for a reason.
Yeah, and the other thing about that is Josiah Jordan-James obviously has been back for Tennessee. He's so important to what they do, but there's there's still like a waning period for me with him. I'm just not too confident in this Tennessee team as I was before the JJJ and Phillips injuries.
So it will be interesting. So let's check out another team that I thought was really fun. They've another top 25 floater, if I can coin that. Memphis versus Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic, the Owls having a really surprising season. I think not a lot of people expected, them to really come out of the mid-major world, but against Memphis, another strong American team. What are we liking about this 8-9 matchup here?
I hate
Memphis
it. I
is
really
coming
like
off.
Memphis.
Yeah, Memphis is coming off a really good game. I mean, Matt just threw this out to our group, and it was It's like Houston that lost without Marcus Sasser, and I personally didn't think so. I think they have a really good body of work. I think they just needed a stinker loss to sort of get a little steam under their belt, right? So I think that being said, Kendrick Davis is, he appears to be at full strength. There were some questions whether he was. I think it was a lower body injury he was fighting before. He dropped 31 points today, right? So when he's on, he is on, right? This is a Memphis team, I think, that can come out and really punch FAU in the face, despite – I don't want to take anything away from Florida Atlantic. We were giving them a lot of crap when they beat Bryant by a couple of points. We're like, oh, nice. Like, great. FAU, you beat Bryant. But they went on and had a great year. They spent some time in the AP top 25. They spent some time in the college hoops, the House of College Hoops top 25. But I think I look at a team like Memphis and I just say the raw talent beats FAU this year.
To play a little bit of devil's advocate here, I'm not too sure who I'm going to pick in this game, but it's a 51-49 10-palm split right now. I think it's a lot closer than a lot of people are giving it credit for. FAU can really shoot, and Memphis kind of really lets teams shoot. And I think you look at FAU, they're top 20 in effective field goal offense and effective field goal defense. This is certainly a team to watch and say, maybe we're not giving them as much credit as they deserve.
I wanted to come into this tournament and pick FAU to make the Sweet 16. I really did. And when I look at that number 1 seed, I'm like, okay, there is a chance. And then I see Memphis. It's like raw talent just takes over. And FAU, one thing they do really well defensively is they make you beat them one-on-one. They have not faced a guard as good as Kendrick Davis. They just have not. Kendrick Davis is one of the best guards in the country, and DeAndre Williams is like 26 years old, which is insane for a college kid. And he's great. I think Memphis wins this game. I hate picking Memphis in this spot because I really wanted to pick the good mid-major, who I had in my top 25 for as long a time as anyone. And then I think Memphis beats Purdue fairly easily.
Although, again, I like this FAU team a lot more than a lot of people do. I feel they would have been favored in this game if Memphis didn't have the win today without Sasser on the court. Memphis jumped 9 spots in KenPom today.
I think looking at the numbers really works in almost every case. I think this one, you just have to look at raw talent and just say that is Kendrick Davis going up against some guys who are excellent as a team, but just individually they aren't great. In the end, I think I hate it. I got Memphis, and then I think the winner of this game regardless, and I'm fairly confident it's Memphis. I think
the thing for me, though, is I look at Vlad Golden, and I see Vlad Golden up against the bigs from Memphis. That's 3 inches right there that Vlad Golden's going to get from whoever it is, if it's DeAndre Williams, Malcolm Dandridge. I think there's a matchup to be won there in the paint, potentially, for FAU. And we know that FAU is really good at defending and scoring in the paint. It's a really damn good basketball team. I don't want to give up on them just yet. I'm going to be thinking about that game all week.
Michael, you brought up another great point. I feel like I'm agreeing with a lot of your points here tonight. Even though all season long I've watched your top 25 come in, and don't get me wrong, I don't think it's bad. But every week I text Jake and I'm like, what does DeRosa see that we're not seeing?
Like, what is he smoking? Wow,
it's never never teams that I'm like You put Alcorn State at 15. It's always just like
Jeff Goodman would do that.
Why do you have Gonzaga 5 spots lower collectively than like literally everybody else in the entire?
Hey, he had a well thought reason, and then he put him back in once they beat.
No,
St. Mary's.
absolutely. And then you hit us with the point, and I'm like, all right.
I was low on Gonzaga for the longest time, and then Anton Watson became an interior defensive presence.
That's it.
And then they just started scoring ridiculously. So
Yeah,
now I think they're a top 5 team in the country.
I think that aircraft carrier game gave a lot of people some doubts about Gonzaga.
It wasn't even that. It was like the early games in conference play on the road where they were allowing like 57%, 60% in the paint.
Yeah, absolutely. The last point in this region that I wanted to talk about, especially, I mean, because it's weird. I don't know. I like
now.
Yeah, if you got to hop off, thank
All
you,
right,
Sam.
yeah.
We really appreciate you coming on. Everybody, Sam Fetterman, he writes for Mid Major Madness. You can follow him on Twitter at Sam_Fetterman, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Thanks,
yeah.
Sam.
Keep following him on everything. He puts out great stuff, and we'll hope to have you on a future show.
Thank you.
All right. So the last point I want to talk about is Duke. 5 seed this year. People were really unsure about what was going to happen because, I mean, I feel like for all of us, this is only the second Duke head coach in our entire lifetime. But look, they powered through. They won the ACC. They got the 5 seed, and they're going up against Oral Roberts, who has a history of being a Cinderella team in the NCAA tournament. So what do you like about this new Duke team? How fresh is it really, or is it just Coach K moving some of his mojo to a guy like John Shire?
I can start here. I think they turned a corner, right? You saw Duke's product evolve significantly. A lot of people said, they sort of put him in the same bucket as UNC in mid to early February and said, hey, okay, they're coming off a 62-point overtime loss to Virginia. Okay, they're coming off, a bad 81-59 loss to Miami, a couple others like NC State and Wake Forest, and they're like, how good really are they? And then they won out after Valentine's Day, right? They haven't lost since then. This is the team that relied, we talked about this in a few different forms of content, but, the first couple of weeks and over the summer too, you're like, all right, Duke's going to go as 2 guys go, right? Dariq Whitehead and Derek Lively. None of them were who the offense actually ran through this year. It was Kyle Filipowski and basically Jeremy Roach, right? And then Tyrese Proctor got involved. Whitehead and Lively, they started to pick it up as the freshmen, right? Ryan Young's getting involved. Mark Mitchell's getting involved. This is a team that their raw talent is starting to turn into a good basketball team. And that just simply can't be overstated when you're working with a program like Duke.
I hate doing this so much, but I like this Duke team quite a bit. I really like them. I hate it. I hate it so much. Jeremy Roach is looking like a legit lead guard. Tyrese Proctor is looking so much better. Dariq Whitehead has been so much better. Mark Mitchell stepped up, and Kyle Filipowski is stepping into the role of that dude. They're playing Ryan Young less, which means they're less desperate for just really someone who knows what they're doing. He's kind of like a calming presence, and when he's playing less, it really shows they kind of know what they're doing more. I hate it. If they get by Oral Roberts, I think they kind of cakewalk to the Elite Eight. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. Someone tell me I'm wrong, please.
No,
It's a bummer.
wrong.
Yeah, it's a bummer because I saw Oral Roberts against St. Thomas live. That team rocks. And so if they got Iowa State or Tennessee or Miami, I would be very inclined to pick them. But I can't do it, man. I just can't.
Yeah, I look at this whole region and I feel like we're destined for, I hope we get that Purdue Marquette rematch with the Final Four on the line, go at Madison Square Garden. The first game they played was fantastic, and Marquette really should have won it before they went super cold at the end of the game. It'd be a great game on a great stage. I also hope we get that Providence Marquette matchup down there. Just 2 Big East teams at Madison Square Garden again. I think that would be crazy. You have something to say, Michael?
Get it. We get it.
I feel like my actions spoke louder than any words. So no comment other than that.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm going through the bracket as a whole right now, and I feel like this is a year where we should be seeing a lot of upsets and people making crazy runs. and then I can't talk myself into anybody doing it. I keep ending up with 1 versus 2 or 1 versus 3 with a chance to go to the Final Four. And I don't think it's going to be like that, but I don't like the kind of 4 through 7 aspect of this bracket as much as I thought I was going to.
Yeah, this might be the toughest region. I mean, there are some really sneaky teams, a lot of talent concentrated into this one part. I mean, I feel like that's kind of what happens when you have like the one that's led by the 4th overall seed. That's kind of where things get really dicey, really close. So let's, Tando, if you could pull that graphic back up right now. Let's everyone take a quick breath, take a look at it, and give me your dark horse pick. Me personally, I feel like maybe Kansas State could get a decent draw if Providence takes down Kentucky, but I'd love to see what you guys think.
Yeah, I'll take. Go ahead. Okay, I got it. I'll go USC. I think Drew Peterson and Boogie Ellis are really fun. And of all of the Big East teams, I am the least confident in Marquette, which is weird to say because they won the Big East tournament and championship in the regular season. But I think USC could compete in both their first 2 games. If they get by that, then who knows where you're at, right? I think I can see 3 of those teams in that next quadrant above face them in the Sweet 16. So we'll see. But yeah, USC is my pick.
You better be careful, though, Chris, because I think you just ended up on Tyler Kolek's bulletin board.
Good. Motivation, baby.
I think Memphis beats Purdue. I think Duke gets to the Elite Eight.
Wow.
I guess those could be dark horse picks. I could see Kentucky beating Kansas State and matchup wise. Marquette's my Final Four pick in this region. I think this one gets crazy. I'll take Marquette, but any of those teams I just listed, dark horse, pick any one of them. I'm fine with it.
This could very well be a Memphis, Duke, Kentucky, Marquette Sweet 16. That's
going to
crazy.
bracket.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, I feel like whoever wins the Kentucky Providence game will be my sleeper, because if Providence is playing well enough to win that game, I think they can play with anybody else in this bracket, except probably Purdue. And Kentucky is obviously crazy talented. So whoever wins that, I'd like to make some kind of a run.
All right, so that's it. We've broken down the bracket. In 2 days, we've got the first 4. I don't know what else I can say. I mean, this is my favorite time of year. I know it's all of our favorite times of year, and because of that, we're still going to be talking. We'll probably be checking in here every once in a while as the tournament goes on into the Sweet 16, Elite 8. Obviously, on our website, House of College Hoops, houseenterprise.com/the blog, and at College Hoops HE, we'll be putting out amazing content, talking about all of our favorite teams, crazy matchups, crazy upsets, Cinderella runs. We've got it all here for you at the House of College Hoops. So on behalf of our crew, and a big thank you to Sam Fetterman from Mid-Major Madness for joining us in the first part of this show. We'd like to thank you guys so much for tuning in, and stick around. This is March. We'll see you guys next time.